Hello. Today I will be featuring the Tier 10 German cruiser, the Hindenburg, which will soon be available for rental for Clan Wars. Now the Hindenburg, just like the Zao, has a turret setup that is equally split between the bow and the stern, which means of course that half the guns are located on the stern, which means you have to give a lot of broadside in order to fire. And because of this turret setup, you obviously don't want to sit still in this ship because you have to give so much broadside to fire the back guns, which means of course that if you're stationary and giving broadside, you become extremely vulnerable. With the smoke changes as well, meaning you can get spotted when you're firing in smokes, you have a 10.2 km concealment when firing guns in the smoke, so in general you don't want to spend too much time sitting stationary in smokes because it's very risky even without being radared or spotted otherwise. Now the Hindenburg is moderately tanky in the sense that it's actually at long ranges it's quite vulnerable to citadels, as you'll get a perfect example here. At long ranges you will get citadel quite easily. However, at close ranges there's some special features that the Hindenburg has that no other cruiser, or at least tier 10 cruiser, has. In order to understand what I'm talking about, we'll have to take a quick look at the armor model. Now, if we strip away the armor, note by the way, 27mm bow, which means you don't want to go nose-in against any battleships at tier 10, because they can overmatch the bow easily. And now, stripping away the armor, we note that the citadel is protected by a turtleback. That alone means of course that at close ranges you are quite tricky to citadel, but even more importantly, if we peel away the turtleback, we see that the citadel is not only extremely low in the water, but it's also angled. And this angle is extremely important because this makes you nigh impossible to citadel at close ranges, which is what gives this ship such terrifying brawling power. Here you can see a training room example of exactly what I said. Trying to citadel a Hindenburg at close brawling ranges is extremely difficult. Now the exception to this is the Des Moines, which has such great penetration and such great plunging fire that it's much better than the other cruisers at it, but even the Des Moines struggles at point blank ranges because the Hindenburg really doesn't want to get citadel. You have to aim straight below the water line, and even then you have to pray to the RNG gods to get that citadel, which means of course in any sort of 1 versus 1 fight, it's going to take you a long time to kill a brawling Hindenburg. And you don't have a long time to kill a brawling Hindenburg because the Hindenburg has access to 8 torpedoes on both sides, which of course means that this combination of low citadel, hard to hit, plus these extremely strong, powerful torpedoes means that this ship is a nightmare to brawl against in any other cruiser, or even any battleship as well. Now, just because it has this extremely low hard hit citadel and these great torpedoes doesn't mean that you should overcommit, because that is in fact one of the mistakes I see people do most often in the Hindenburg, and that's usually because the Hindenburg is not an easy cruiser to disengage with. If you end up committing, you usually have to go full in, because the Hindenburg is by far the slowest cruiser in the game. Without a speed flag, it has a 21.5 knot speed, which means of course when you try to rush someone who's experienced, they would simply kite away and they will draw you in and draw you into the crossfire of their teammates. As you can see, this Hindenburg trying to push me in my Moskva. This is how you counter a Hindenburg trying to push you. You angle, you reverse, you draw him into friendly fire. And in nose-in fights you will be victorious, and as if he does give broadside, of course, even while you can't get citadels, you can still do excellent damage to him. And keep in mind, because there are no carriers, everyone will be running hydro. So if you use your torps, you want to use them very close range, because experienced players will be able to dodge torps you didn't think were actually dodgeable. Another unique thing about the Hindenburg that must be mentioned is the HE penetration. Now normally HE penetration is counted so that you divide the caliber by 6, and then you get your HE pen. In this case we can see the Moskva with 220mm guns, which are bigger than Hindenburg guns. You can see how the shells are shattering. The Kaba 50mm broadside armor and the Montana 38mm broadside armor have absolutely no issues shattering all these shells, and you can see the damage dealt is 0. If we however put the Hindenburg in the same situation, you might notice that instead of shattering we are getting penetrations, and that's because it's divided by 4 on the German cruisers instead of being divided by 6 on all the other cruisers. So that means the Kaba 50mm plate is no longer capable of stopping our shells, neither is the Montana armor. This is very situational, but it's useful when fighting battleships, Kaba, Moskva, because these are the ships that have big enough caliber or strong enough armor to block the other shells, but vulnerable to the Hindenburg itself. Now, build-wise, you have a fair amount of options. Consumable-wise, I recommend premium everything, of course. Remember to slot the hydro. The German hydro is stronger than all other nations' hydro, giving you additional range. Also, spotter plane is more useful than the catapult fighter, simply because you have DDs doing the spotting and you have access to radar and such things. Not to mention, spotting aircraft will give you much needed range, as well as the ability to shoot into smokes more accurately. Upgrade wise, I'm actually running the spotting aircraft mod 1, which increases spotter plane duration for the reasons I just mentioned, but you can also run main armaments mod 1 to increase turret and torpedo tube survivability. I think both of these are very useful. AA range is of course pointless. You should be running aiming systems mod instead. For this is a random battle build, so for ranked absolutely get aiming system mod. Faster reload. This is if you intend to push with the Hinden. If you intend to play more passive and defend a sector instead of pushing a sector, then I would probably go for the range mode instead, because it gives you more versatility. However, if you're pushing, you want to push down a flank aggressively, I think the reload is far better. Tankiness followed by tankiness or alternatively hydro duration. Both are excellent. I think hydro might even be better in this case for that longer duration push advantage. Faster rudder shift and concealment. Captain perks wise, the priority is absolutely priority target, adrenaline rush, superintendent, concealment expert, and fire demolition expert. Now once you have this basic build, you can add things. For example, you can go my build, which is vigilance, high alert and preventive maintenance, or you can give up things like vigilance and preventive maintenance and instead get fire prevention, or you can give up high alert and get something else instead. There are plenty of options here. And finally, flag wise, I do recommend running the speed flag, healing, fire duration decrease, detonation flag, of course, this is ranked, you don't want to die to something silly, increase your own fire chance, highly recommended, and of course ramming flag, since you will be brawling quite a lot. Speed flag is pretty necessary because of how slow you are. And finally, I do like running November Foxtrot, because this combined with high alert actually reduces your repair to a pretty impressive 51 seconds, which makes you pretty damn immune to any sort of fire damage. But that is of course my build. You can modify it as you like, as fits your style. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will talk to you